time is running out, and we can see this as the economic indicators are piling up. So today we will discuss why the US is collapsing. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. I want to get into a bunch of charts today and connect that in with some information and show you exactly why the mainstream media is able to manipulate the information that we receive. Let's begin with this article out of the Wall Street Journal, and they're talking about a discrepancy. I've referred to this as a chasm or a schism that has formed in between the rich and the poor. The Wall Street Journal said that the bottom 10% of Americans by income devote 42% of their spending to housing and an additional 17% to food. That's 60% of their spending. And then they say essentially that the wealthiest group of people have a very different scenario. They spend much less on these things. You're talking about the richest of the rich, or are we just talking about the so-called wealthy people? This does not include the Warren Buffetts. It doesn't include the Bill Gates. What we're looking at is the upper middle class people and comparing them to the lowest class here. And essentially, we'll go into a few charts to describe this, but the worse off these individuals are in terms of their income, the worse off they are in many different categories. And we can see that here outlined in these two charts. This one first is the bare essentials share of expenditures on food and housing for different income groups. It's pretty self-explanatory, but all I'm trying to show you here is that the most poor of the people spend the majority of their money on food and housing, and the more wealthy people have a lot of their disposable income. So let's move on to this chart showing you the sources of income, and essentially what we're looking at is the public assistance and food stamps. Obviously the lowest 10% here are going to have most of their income, or a larger portion of their income, coming from the public assistance and the food stamps, and the more wealthy the person gets, the less they will need of that. This is fairly self-explanatory, essentially just trying to show you that there are different classes of people that are being formed here. Soon there will only be two. This is really that discrepancy that the Wall Street Journal is talking about is getting wider and wider. This here is essentially trying to show that there are more and more renters in the U.S. Essentially, there are good times for the U.S. landlords, for many tenants, not so much. The renters have to pay 50% of them already spend more than 1/3 of their pay on rent. An extremely high number when you think about it, because it is getting much worse. 6% rise in apartment rents between 2000 and 2012, and this is going to be a much bigger problem as those subprime mortgages, in fact, always, of course, a lot of them had to foreclose and so on. So the people then move back into their rental properties, and then you have a problem because the supply and demand fundamentals are not there. Rent can be pushed up, and this is what's happening. Rents are becoming more expensive, even though the people are in fact becoming more poor. In my book, I really outline this, and I hope that this is a great example of what's happening today. In 1970, the average home price was about $27,000. In 2010, it's about $270,000. That's a tenfold increase over a 40-year period. Pretty simple. The median household income for 1970 was $9,000. 40 years later, the median household income was about $50,000. That's a five-fold increase over the same period. And essentially what I'm trying to show here is that despite a rise in income, the price of assets have risen much faster. So the income you work at your 9-to-5 job isn't really adding up to the amount that we are in fact needing to pay for the food and for the housing. This is true inflation that we are seeing right before our very eyes. This is a very, very important indicator that we need to continue to monitor as the days, the weeks, the months, and the years go on. Right here from McDonald's. Everyone loves McDonald's, and you can go to their dollar menu, which they launched in 2002. And their dollar menu now includes items that are $5. What has happened to the value of this fiat garbage currency other than it being devalued every single day? The Federal Reserve has done an excellent job. I've read the quotes here before. I believe it was Ben Bernanke who said that it is in the interest of the Federal Reserve to create inflation in order to erode the debt. We can expect that this will in fact continue. Let's look at this. Speaking of these food prices rising, right from the BLS's own website, you're looking at the price of ground beef since the financial crisis has absolutely skyrocketed. When you want to know if there is inflation, look at this as an important indicator. The price has skyrocketed. Let's move on to this here. Extremely important. One of the most important indicators as far as I'm concerned. We are looking at real median household income in the United States. I chose since the year 2000, but you can see during the financial crisis as well, it is going downward. And yes, over the past, let's say, couple years, it has come back up. But look at where it was prior, and look at how this has declined considerably in a few short years, essentially. It's very important. Now, all of these indicators, everything I've discussed today, means nothing to the mainstream media, means nothing to all the analysts, those who manage portfolios, those who are looking after the millions, the billions, and the trillions of dollars, because this seems to be more important to them. And this is just one example, the 200-day moving average. They look at these charts here. For those who don't know, I always mention the 200-day moving average just as a comparison, but they look at this, and this is all they need to know. They need a little bit of information from Bloomberg and CNBC, just some positive news just constantly coming. And then they look at charts like this 200-day moving average, and notice how the 200-day moving average acts as a strong level of support. This happens to be from Investopedia, just trying to show you that essentially it doesn't matter what's going on in the world. As long as the 200-day or 50-day or 100-day moving average are showing the real information according to them, that's all they need to know. The reality is not there. This is a joke. This is what we are comparing ourselves against. Every time you hear the mainstream media and all of these other people in the financial world talking about how strong the economy is, this is what they're looking at. Not the real median household income, not the price of ground beef, not how rents are rising. People are having to rent more and more. They're foreclosing on their homes. There's a glut, millions and millions of homes in the U.S. alone. Not the jobs being shipped overseas, not the billions and the trillions of dollars of bailouts being handed out to corporations that we're not allowed to know about. Not any of all of those things. It is this charts. All they are numbers on a paper that don't mean anything, and this is the truth. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. I truly appreciate that very much. I'm trying to do a lot of the work on the back end. I'm doing interviews recently. I am really doing a lot of work here that's going on behind the scenes. I assure you that there is work to be done, lots of stuff. I wanted to let you know that unfortunately I need to shut down the Money GPS Insiders. I've been, contemplating this for quite a while. It is just, quite frankly, too expensive for me, and I cannot afford to keep it going. It is a very expensive monthly fee that I have to pay for it, and for the time being, I'm going to have to shut it down at some point in the near future. Thank you very, very much to all those who have supported the Insiders and joined up on there, give me the positive feedback. I really do appreciate that. Just quite frankly, it's just too expensive. Just wanted to let you know that and have full transparency and honesty with you. If you found this video informative, I know you will find my book, The Money GPS, as well. And you can go to Amazon and actually flip through the book and see if you like it for yourself. Take care.